All right, everyone. So welcome to the About That Wine book club. And since today's theme is scents, and I live, on a farm, and it is a pandemic, I did shave today. This goes for shaving during the pandemic. I have clean clothes on, and I took a shower. So just so I wouldn't offend any of you, and also to protect you further, I even have a glass screen in front of me. So let's go ahead and get started before I introduce our guest. And I'm going to read a very short section of the book. It's 2 paragraphs that I'm going to read. It's about half a page. And it starts on page 13. And it's the narrator speaking. And it's early on in the book. So this is the voice of the narrator, who is not me, by the way. It is the narrator. So he's talking about taste. And taste change. Maxwell House coffee gave way to espresso. Wonder Bread turned into baguettes or loaves with so many grains, they're heavier than a brick. Dry wines are preferred to sweet, and all the talk is farm to table, organic, sustainable agriculture, locally grown, heart healthy, brain healthy food, and the mythology of wine. This is no exaggeration. The Greeks had their Dionysus, the Romans their Bacchus, and hoity-toity Californians worship the grape. It's ridiculous to hear aficionados talk about some of the tastes they find in wine. Have you ever tasted chocolate in wine? What a bunch of crap. An espresso? Better not mix that in. I don't care what some famous critic says about a particular wine or how many points the Wine Spectator gives it. Everyone's taste buds are different. What matters is how it tastes in my mouth, not somebody else's. I sigh every time my wife spends $70, $75 or more on a bottle of some boutique winemaker she and Carrie Ann discovered. If you analyze what it cost Paul to produce a bottle of wine and counted every expense, including his time, plus that of his wife Sheila, spent in the vineyard, and what he paid for his property, it probably cost him $500 to produce a good one. He certainly made a lot of bad ones. My ongoing quest is to find good wines under $10 a bottle. And with that, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Kelly Jones, founder of Kelly and Jones Perfumes. And Kelly, tell us, what is a scent sommelier?
Oh, hi everyone, cheers. So excited to meet all of you. Thank you, Craig, for bringing us all together. My name is Kelly Jones. I'm a perfumer based now. I was in New York City, now I'm in the Catskills in New York. And years ago, when I was starting my perfumery training, I was wearing a little hint of a vanilla fragrance on my wrist when I went into a tasting room in Napa, and the winemaker said, "Who's wearing fragrance?" And of course, Lulu starts barking right now.
Right.
She was good the whole time. Sorry, I just closed the door. Can you hear her? Is that interrupting? Okay. So something really magical was happening when this wine was wafting from my wrist across the glass. And I realized that wine and perfume, maybe they could go together. So I went back to my scent studio and I created a line of fragrances to pair with wine. And when I first launched this collection, I got in a lot of trouble, and rightfully so, because you really need to respect the art of the winemaker, and really perfume can truly interfere with a wine tasting. But I wanted to play with our senses and create something that could teach us a little bit more and differently how to enjoy the wine in your glass and experience the bouquet of wine in an all new way. So that is what a scent sommelier is. And my goal is really just to get you to sip your wine and enjoy the aromas in an all new way.
Yeah. When I wrote the book, I used a technique of thinking theologically about just ordinary things. I mean, it could be dogs running and thinking, that might be a representation of the kingdom of heaven, and that's theological thinking. When I think of you and being a scent specialist, do you practice scentological thinking?
I really like that term. I think that scent really teaches us to experience the world in an all new way, and we don't use our sense of smell enough in life. And without it, you really realize there's a lot missing. And unfortunately, people are experiencing that right now with COVID. I know several people who have, for a scary period of time, lost their sense of smell, and you don't really realize what's happened until it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of, loss of sense of smell, there's one of the characters in the book who actually can't smell. So he's a winemaker who can't smell. And so he uses his dog actually as his nose, because dogs have this amazing nose. One of the things I'm curious about is there's some odors that are very repugnant, to us, whether it might be dead animals or feces or things like that. But dogs, like they'll go up, to a pile of shoot or pile of shat, depending on what part of your country you're from.
She's coming back.
Speaking of dogs.
So we're talking about you.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, do they experience bad smells, or why is it that we as humans, might be turned off by some smells? What about dogs? I mean, how do they smell?
That's such an interesting question, because I think we all have this impression that dogs have this super sense of smell and other animals can smell so much better than us. And yeah, that's the perception. But there was a neuroscientist from Rutgers University who in 2017 kind of debunked that myth. And there have been many studies that show that dogs actually don't smell as much as we think they do. And I think that, I know when I first learned that, it was very surprising to me. But I think that is attributed to the fact that we just don't use our sense of smell. We don't go around in our world smelling the pages of the book and the ink of the pen. We just don't do that. But a dog's world, that's how they communicate. And when they're stopping at the fire hydrant, they're sniffing the messages from all of the other dogs, and that's their method of communication, whereas we take all of our smell for granted. And the other crazy piece of this is that some of the scents in our world that are really stinky and really repulsive make the most incredible ingredients in perfumery. I know you all have heard of musk. Musk is from the glands of a deer. It's no longer used in its pure form because they don't want to hurt the animals. It's all synthetic. It's very safe synthetics. But there's also ambergris, which is the vomit of a whale. And if you ever find that on the beach, first of all, you have to report it because it's illegal to take it without reporting it, but it's worth so much money. And and even indoles, which are kind of a poopy smell, is kind of gross when you think about it. But there are indole molecules in excrement, but there are also indole molecules in jasmine. And so it becomes this very sexual, sensual realm, this other world around us, all of these crazy ingredients that if you just put one drop into the bottle, it changes it and it makes it the most seductive or the most beautiful or intriguing. And it can completely just make a perfume completely mystical. But if you just smell that one ingredient all on its own, you're probably going to throw up. So does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, and I've got one more question for you before maybe we get to a little scent tasting. And that is, is there such a thing that is the pureness of the scent? And by that, I mean, if you have something that is the pure scent, and maybe let's just take lavender, And if I smell lavender and you smell lavender, do we perceive the same thing, or is smell based on on an individual? Do we smell, take the same thing that we're both experiencing? Do we experience it the same way?
It's actually, Craig, it's so much like a glass of wine. We could all be sipping on your Tempranillo, and everyone gets something different. And someone might smell something that no one has ever thought of before. Like, has the anise from my Nana's cookies that she used to bake at Christmas. And somebody else might get a little bit of the dirt from their garden, and their terroir in California is different from the terroir in the Catskills. So we definitely, what scent is, it's so incredible. It's mind blowing. It's one of our senses, but it's an art. You interpret it however you want to. And I think one good example is cilantro, because a lot of people really hate the taste of cilantro, and they say it tastes soapy, I can't stand it. Whereas you'll have another group of people who put it all over their tacos and can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
So it's not only a personal taste, but we have genes in our human system that also interpret the fragrances. We have thousands of nerves, and the fragrance travels from the nerve endings directly to the limbic system. And no other sense has that. Even touch, it takes a moment to get to your brain. And that's why we have scent memories, because you can smell something and it's immediately, there's a piece of your brain that is embedded with that fragrance memory, and it's endless. So I think if that answers your question, it's fragrance is an art. The world around us, the sense of smell is an art, and it kind of gets back to what I'm trying to do with my fragrances, is just get people to stop and don't get a terrier.
No, I think they're good for catching rats. I need
You want her to come to the vineyard?
Yeah, we would love to have a rat. Yeah, rat terrier.
Yeah.
Well,
Ellie, I often tease my husband that I picked him by his scent, because I think he smells different from everybody else in a good way. And I know that when my son was a little baby, I couldn't wait to smell him. It just, you're right about what you were saying.
Yeah. And who else has questions for Kelly?
That's such a good point. It's so true, because say you have a lover in your life or a significant other, and okay, this is the culprit. You can remember a person by their fragrance, and I do custom scents for weddings and special occasions, and I'll have people say, I really love this scent, but I can't have this because it reminds me of my old boyfriend. or on the other hand, this does remind me of my husband or someone very special to me, and I can't live without it. So that's such a good point.
Good.
I thought that was remarkable, what she shared. It actually has me sitting here thinking. I have a Dane Pitt, and he loves, of course, to sniff. And so when I go away for a couple of weeks at a time and come home, I intentionally come in through the garage and make a quick left opposite of where he resides so that he doesn't see me come in. I just want to get settled before he does the big jump all over me routine, right? And so I sneak in the house and I go left into the bedroom and, try to stay away from him. And 2 seconds later, I hear those big feet pattering through the house, running to me. He smelled me coming in. And so I've always thought, how remarkable is that he can pick up my scent that way, right? But I'm hearing, and so tell me, am I correct in what I'm hearing is that it's not such a remarkable thing that he does that. It's just that as human beings, we don't practice smelling the way that animals do. Is that correct?
That's right. It's profound. But there were some studies done, and they were just showing that the dogs just have their sense of smell just tuned up.
Right.
So it is really a mystery to me as well, because you can read about those studies, and I can send them. I'll put them in the notes later. But no one really knows how our sense of smell works. There are a lot of studies, and there are a lot of things that you can read about how our sense of smell works, but in the end, it's a pretty big mystery. We don't know, for example, if the molecules that hit our limbic system, are they vibrational, or do they have a shape to them? And with other senses, we have answers to those questions. But smell it's spiritual in a way. And however you want to interpret that, but it's quite spiritual, and it's very primal.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, hi, Julia.
Hi. You know how you can have different beverages like champagne for weddings, and you were saying how you develop scents for occasions, but then we all have different ways we experience those scents. Like I could wear, musk, but someone might wear floral, and floral is terrible on me, So I just wondered, how do you determine what is a great scent for an occasion? And then do you have any concerns about people experiencing it super differently, like I just mentioned?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I always encourage people to wear fragrance on their skin for a few days. It's so easy to even go into a department store and just smell the newest creations and go home with a bottle. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten a bottle of fragrance home, and then you think a few weeks later, oh shoot, I don't really like this anymore. And then you've just wasted all this money on a bottle of perfume. So I do, when I create scents, or even when I'm doing my wine and perfume pairings at different events, I always tell people, we try them on the blotter. So in your kits, you got some of the paper strips, but put it on your skin once you've narrowed it down, and then you can select what works for you. And also, it's very much related to what your taste preferences are. So if you're someone who really loves vanilla cupcakes and creme brulee, then you're going to really like some of those sweeter and more ambery ingredients in your perfumes. But if you like more savory flavors, if you're more of a, chips and salsa, or just something, say sushi, or something that's more fresh, like I can also kind of bring in your taste preferences, can really dictate what you like in your fragrance. And that's what's so fun about wine, is that we'll be all sipping together, and then someone will say, well, I really love Chardonnay, or I really love Pinot Noir. And then interestingly, that usually ties in with what fragrance they prefer.
How funny. I never would have thought your preference in wine would tie in with your fragrance. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so in your kits, for example, you have the bouquet perfume, which this one is quite floral. It's inspired by a rosé blend. And
Should we taste it? Most everyone have a kit?
Yeah, in your kits, you have the little vials, and you can just carefully pop the top off.
Okay,
and
okay.
Again, I do encourage you to try it on your skin, but if you're not ready to yet, you can also dip a paper strip right into the vial and just sniff it that way right on your paper strip. And this one has lots and lots of bergamot botanicals, but it is very much like a rosé wine. So if you're wearing this fragrance and sipping on rosé, you're not going to have a lot of interference with your wine and perfume. So this is a nice one to wear on a summer day when you open up some pink and you're sipping, and you're going to get those complementary notes. Lots of florals, bright citrusy aromas, very complex. And you guys can also let me know what you're smelling in there too, because I like to just kind of give simple explanations for my perfumes and then let you interpret them to what you like. And
they're cheat notes on the back, right?
That's right.
Yes, is that?
That's right. This collection is really fun. There are three fragrances. They're inspired by natural wine. So I don't filter these perfumes. So there's a little bit of sediment in the bottle. I just try to not mess with them too much and just a few simple ingredients, unfiltered. Yeah, so that one kind of is back to that point about which wines you prefer. And then if you smell the vin, that is more of a Pinot Noir. And it has lots of black currant and a little bit of heavier florals. So there's a hint of oakiness to it. So that one is more of the red wine rendition.
Hey, Kelly, as a follow-up, does your scent and how it reacts, do you think change with age? You know how you can develop different tastes while you age with wine? What do you think about that?
Yeah, there have been quite a few studies. That's a great question too. It's your body chemistry changes. So even what we eat, if you are going to have a big plate of pasta and garlic one night, the next day your skin is going to interpret the fragrance a little bit differently. Even what we eat is going to affect how that smells. And as we age over time, we get fine like wine. It's, it can definitely change on your skin. So, you know, it's good to change up your fragrances with that too.
So which scent are we on now? I think I lost my spot.
Oh, sorry, I'm all over the place. I was talking about the vin.
Vin,
Yeah.
fine.
The vin is a more masculine fragrance.
Really?
And it just has lots of black currant. There's a little bit of a cypress note to it. So it has some woodiness. I like to.
So you know I'm a big Tempranillo fan.
Yeah.
What does that mean about which fragrances do you think would appeal to me?
I almost think for you.
Of course, I like everyone. You know that.
Oh, thank you. You don't have to like them all too, but Craig, I think for you, and we can move on to the terroir. This is the scent of the earth. It's from I picture you're digging in the earth, you're cultivating the vines, you're testing the soil, and
that's pre-shower.
Right. That was
now is post-shower.
Right. And if you smell the terroir, which I modeled the terroir after an Hermes style fragrance. So it's pretty sophisticated. It's got lots of chypre and kind of aldehydic notes to it. But it has, in the end, it really smells like a wet earth, mushroom.
Mushrooms.
Mushroom.
No, I've never tasted mushrooms in wine. I have to tell you that. I did experience chocolate though once, maybe twice.
What does everyone else smell? And does anybody kind of pick up anything intriguing in any of the fragrances?
I feel like some are heavier than others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the bouquet one is the lightest, like a rosé, and then the bean is one step more body, more weight. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it.
I think it's interesting that they really are completely different.
Yeah, the bouquet, and I don't like to say scents are even masculine or feminine, because I think you should just wear what you love and what smells good on you, because violet, I think, smells incredible on a man's skin. And the whole concept of men's perfumes and women's perfumes is just, you know what, we should just put on what you love and wear what you love.
For me, I'm liking the is that how you?
I'm sorry, which one was that?
The beignet. And what is interesting to me is that, usually when you try 3 perfumes, you get confused which one is which, and they all start smelling the same. But even after a few minutes, I can tell which is which.
Wow.
That's
I
great.
think I'm
And
liking
you're
the
right.
terroir. How do you say it?
Terroir, and terroir is the term that winemakers use to describe the soil. Well, Craig, you probably have a brilliant
In the book.
Right. No, you're exactly right. I was thinking though, you need to rename this one Terrier.
Terrier. Rawr. There she is. I'm so sorry for all the barking earlier. I thought we had that all fixed.
No, barking is good, like children. It brings joy to us.
I am so into perfume. Like I cannot start my day without wearing a scent. You know,
Oh,
like, I
that's
just
so cool.
love
What
it.
do you usually
Like,
like to
that's-
wear? What's your favorite?
Joe Malone. You know Joe Malone in London? Joe
Yeah.
Malone I just love Joe Malone. So yeah. So I love it. Or when I lived in France with my brother, I used to love opium when I was young. Like I was 16, 17. That's so powerful. I'm like, but everybody remembers me from that smell.
I know.
That's a major smell. That's like,
me. I love the scents from the 80s and
Yes.
90s. Dune
maybe
and
it was 80s.
know,
80s. Right.
yeah, they're so good. I mean, I wore Lulu Cacharel. That's what my dog's name is, Lulu, named after Lulu. They were these perfumes that made statements and that were just bold and surprising. Even Angel, which was a little later in that era. So now, perfume regulatory and perfume changes a lot, and so a lot of perfumes will change over time because IFRA, which is the International Fragrance Regulatory Association, will ban ingredients. So they've banned a lot of the fragrances that are in Chanel No. 5. You aren't allowed to use anymore. Oak
Really?
moss, for
Oh.
example. Yeah,
And
oak
people are-
moss is a really beautiful essential oil, but it
Yeah.
can be an irritant to the skin. And so this regulatory piece, and a lot of people kind of will say, oh, well, perfume, it's irritating to my skin. And some people do have issues with that. It's true, but you don't really, when you're buying a legitimate fragrance at a department store or something finished like this, there's so much regulatory that it has to go through. So for example, I can't even use pure orange peel extract in my perfumes because that's considered an irritant to the skin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we could have a whole other call on ingredients, and it's very complex. It's so interesting, and yeah. So my point is, a lot of those older fragrances, just even if you buy it now, it will smell different because they have had to change the ingredients in the fragrance to meet regulatory. I used to work for SC Johnson, and I did Glade and Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret. And so during my perfumery training, I had to work a lot on those brands that we all use every day. It's like Aveeno and shampoos and even toilet bowl cleaners have smell that you can't believe how much research goes into it. So only about 20% of the fragrance industry's perfumes are used in fine fragrance. But that just gets back to, I think, what we're here to talk about today too, is start smelling everything around you and train your nose and just keep drinking that wine and smell it in a new way.
Where did you go for training?
I worked for Firmenich, which is a Swiss fragrance house, and they have their main office in Paris. So Paris and New York.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
Interesting with COVID, how, the first thing you lose is your sense of smell. And that's just so bizarre to me. Like I have twin boys who are 20 and both of them had COVID and both of them lost, sense of smell and taste. And imagine that. I have a sensitive nose. I smell everything. And it's interesting that that's where it attacked. You know what I mean? The sensory.
It's just so mind-blowing and really scary. I mean, I know for me, I've shut down my studio and I don't have anybody working with me right now because I can't take a chance of losing my sense of smell even for a few weeks. I do have a few colleagues that have gone through it and it's been terrible. it's just so, I hope they soon find out
It's
what's
interesting.
going on. Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
because then you think, well, I know when you get a cold, you can't taste anything when you have a cold, so something, and
But
with
it's
that,
young people.
yeah,
The young people, they
they
don't
got
get
it back.
tense.
I wonder if anybody is old enough to remember a fragrance called Tigress from the 60s.
Oh,
Tigress or Wood Hue. I guess not. That shows you how old I am.
No, I'm saying you're looking at me when you ask that question. So
And also White Shoulders and Charlie.
early,
Charlie,
yeah.
I remember.
Charlie, yeah.
I used White Shoulders. My aunt would only wear a perfume called Tweed, and she kept it in the refrigerator, so it wouldn't. But that was all. And when they quit making it, she was just so depressed. I couldn't find it anywhere for her. She was 90, 20 years ago.
Feel like the fragrance industry in the United States has really evolved alongside the wine industry. So when you think about these iconic fragrances like Charlie, and that you would smell now and think, well, I probably can't wear this much now because it's so overpowering and maybe it's not very refined, but that's really how our wine started out in the US, and now it's so refined. And I think we have Craig, look at what you're creating. It's so incredible, but it's perfume evolved alongside our wine industry in a way and became more sophisticated. But it's everybody, this is, kind of goes back, Craig, to your question about, do we smell things differently? Because it's also very cultural what we smell. There are communities in India that rub cow dung on their children it's just, that's a really good smell to them, and it sounds so repulsive to us, but different cultures like different things. Like in Japan, they like very citrusy, clean aromas. They don't care for heavy musks and vanillas, and it's very, very cultural.
Kelly, I have a couple questions, but so how does taste play into the smell?
It's so brilliant, Pat. That's such a good question. 80 to 90% of what we taste is what we smell. That's why it's so important. The type of glass that you're drinking your wine out of can affect the aromas of the wine. And when you have a cold, really, you can't really taste your wine very much.
And this is a fair question, because I think almost everyone on this call, I've probably given a bottle of wine to, maybe except Demetria, but she's on the list. What are you smelling in that 2018 Tempranillo? And I'll hide my ears so you can tell them.
It's really just brambleberry. It's just like I'm going into my grandmother's berry patch. So it's kind of got that green leafy aroma, crushed berries. I'm just kind of shoving them into my mouth right off of the vine, picking as many as I can. And even it's that brambly aroma. So you can kind of picture yourself going through the vines, and a little thorny here and there, very green.
That must be from all the thistle that's on the floor. It really hurts your fingers. You need thick gloves.
I love that. Yeah, there's some thistle in there. And then to me, I'm also getting a really pretty leathery note, but just the lightest leather, just a little bit of fresh leather, Italian handbag or something, just a little whiff of it. Somebody passing down the street.
So I'm a little curious about leather and leather scents and what is standing in for those leather scents. Could you talk about that a little?
This is such a great question. This kind of gets us into naturals, botanicals, and synthetics. So whenever you're smelling a leather aroma, what that is an accord. An accord, ACCORD, is a group of ingredients that a perfumer creates to create an aroma like leather. So as opposed to, say, a rose fragrance, which is just that straight rose dripped out from the distillation of the roses. So an accord, that leather accord, is going to have, say, a little bit of patchouli, a little bit of amber. It's going to have probably a blend of essential oils and synthetics. And don't be afraid when you hear the word synthetic, because it's an architecture. It's an art form that the perfumer creates using molecules that very often are bioidentical to nature. And so, for example, sometimes these synthetic ingredients can be better for us than the real thing, because right now, Palo Santo is really, really popular in the personal care world, and it's being significantly over harvested. So the perfumers have come up with a synthetic bioidentical creation of that Palo Santo molecule. And so when you use that, you're getting the same essence. It's totally skin safe, and it's way better for the environment. So there's so much we have to learn. And don't get me wrong, there are some crappy perfumes out there and people using things that they shouldn't, but it's really good to dig really deep into that. And so I don't know if does that answer your question about where the leather scent comes from?
Yes, that's where I was going. Thank you very much.
Oh, and
I
we
like
have a really brilliant technique in perfumery at Firmenich. We did this. It's called a steamy needle, and we stuck it into the leather seats of a Bentley, and it reads the structure of the chemical that's in the leather of the seat, and you can run it through your systems and recreate it exactly just by sticking this needle in. It's mind-blowing technology.
I was going to say, I was on a flight once, and the guy next to me is in the business for restaurants and things, selling scents, and he claimed they could reproduce like basically any scent.
Yeah, if you have enough money, you can create scent. Yeah, and the fragrance and flavor world is very intertwined too. These fragrance houses do a lot of flavors so alcohol.
I guess it was flavor. It was every flavor. It wasn't scent, but it was flavor, which again,
Yeah.
that gets back to me for the taste and the smell kind of combined into one to me.
Exactly.
I just
More
went
questions for
to,
Kelly.
I went to my bedroom to get my favorite perfume, really the only one that I wear these days, and it's called Roma. And I put it on, and I said, well, all three of those other ones smell better.
Well, maybe it just got old too. Sometimes perfumes just get old and then they don't smell good anymore. That's why your friend was smart to put her fragrances in the refrigerator. That can really help. I do have a collection of fragrances that pair with wine. So we do Merlot and Pinot Grigio and Rosé, and those are really fun. I do a lot of classes with those. And then we have a Mezcal collection. But it's, you know what? Take whatever perfume you have at home and start pairing it with your wine and see what it does. And you'll start training your nose, just like we're doing today with these fragrances. You can do it at home with whatever you have in your bathroom or your boudoir. And have fun with it. Yes.
I haven't been wearing it very much, and I thought, well, it's because we're all at home all the time. And now I'm thinking maybe I've outgrown that smell because it smells really vanilla-y. Is that a good word? Vanilla-y.
Yeah, and it also can smell different because you just smelled those other fragrances. It's almost like when you taste your wines and you taste the Sauvignon Blanc after you taste the Cabernet, and it's gonna mess up your taste buds. You know how you do a wine tasting in a certain route.
You need to
journey.
Smell a cracker or something.
Yeah.
What would, if you were doing a perfume tasting, what would be the equivalent of crackers? Like just to try to neutralize your palate so you can go and try the next one.
Yeah, that's great. It's, well, it's ideally you could have a little thing of coffee beans that you can whiff, but also the easiest thing to do is just smell your sleeve or smell your own body, and it just completely neutralizes your nose. Also, perfumers will use a piece of wool because it just neutralizes. The wool is my favorite to use. The coffee beans do work. Yeah, usually after 3 to 5 fragrances, your nose gets really tired. So you just want to walk out in the fresh air, take a little break.
Now, I know you're not supposed to give chocolate to a dog. What if you put the coffee beans under a dog's nose? What would that do for them?
I know that she would probably.
That's not dangerous, is it?
I wouldn't give.
I mean, not to eat them, but just to let them smell
beans.
the coffee beans.
She's already hyperactive enough.
I have a question. Now that we're all wearing masks all the time,
Yeah.
how does that impact your business and also in how we interact with one another?
Oh, it's been really tough for me because 70% of my business before this was events and wine and perfume pairings, and I go down to New York City and do wine tastings, and oh man, it's been really hard because you can kind of smell through the mask, but you kind of can't, you don't really get it. So, I mean, one thing I'm really encouraging people to do now is wear your perfume at home when you're alone. It doesn't matter. We used to wear it for others. So you're going out on a date or you have a special occasion or you're seeing your family. Well, we're not doing that anymore. So don't let your perfume sit there and go to waste. Put it on and it makes you feel so good. And also it can take you to your favorite place. I know I love to travel and I always try to get a perfume when I go to different places because every time I smell that, it takes me straight back there. Put that perfume on now. Don't go a day without wearing your fragrance, even if you don't take a shower. And I'm kind of going through more perfume now though, because I'm not taking as many showers. Last night I went to go pick up some takeout and I thought, oh, I better
Wasn't that the original reason for perfume?
It was. Hi, Russ. Yeah.
Hi. Hey, I have a question for you. Have you learned anything from the dog about smelling?
Oh yeah, we were talking earlier about how dogs kind of communicate with each other through smell. So when we're going on a walk, it takes us forever because she has to stop at every corner and smell that little message and tell everybody in the neighborhood what's going on. Absolutely.
So am I the only one that's on tonight that's from the South?
Depends what you call Texas.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
And
I'm from Tennessee, but my fiance and I, we love to visit Napa, and we stay at the Archer Hotel whenever we're there, and we do the wine tasting. So would this type of pairing be available to us if we come?
Oh, well, I'm located in New York, but we have partnered with wineries before. I've done some work with Riverbench Winery. They're in Paso Robles. And we were expanding that. We're not really doing any right now, but you know, feel free to write to me or call before you go on your trip, and I'll send you some fragrances that you can take with you and enjoy your tasting. I always do caution people to not wear perfume when you're with the winemaker and doing a tasting, just because there is a pretty big rule in the industry, and I really want to respect that. But it was so funny because when I first created these, I got in so much trouble, and this one wine blogger, I can't remember, her name was Jo. She's a really big wine blogger. She's really well known. And she wrote about my perfumes, and she said, who is this person doing this? And you know, I mean, she had a point. And it was crazy because Letty T, who at the time was the wine columnist for the Wall Street Journal called me and said, what is this? What are you doing with perfume and wine? And that's when I knew I had to work on these and refine them and continue it, even though I was getting yelled at a lot and people were saying that this was not a good idea, because it did evolve. And it's this lesson of stick to things in life that you believe in, because then it ended up, we've been featured in Wine Enthusiast and Marie Claire magazine and Food and Wine magazine. And I've worked with some of the somms from the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh, this one.
Laguna Beach. Like it's been a super fun journey, just breaking think about what rules of wine can you break?
I have a question.
Supposed to go with what you're drinking.
What about up here in upstate New York? Will I be able to do that?
What do you think?
Oh yeah. I remember, did you get your fragrance?
Yes, I did. I got mine. I love it, and it's amazing. But I'm by Geneva, so I don't know if you have any of the Great Lakes wineries around here that you pair with. And
you and I will have to meet up. I just launched an ice wine fragrance earlier.
Oh, nice.
Ice wine to me is the most beautiful, most luxurious smelling wine, and I plan on being up in the Finger Lakes region a little bit more when things open up. So we'll definitely have to
That's where my son goes to college.
Really?
He goes
Yeah,
really?
you all have to meet.
to Bart William Smith.
Let's all meet
nice.
there.
Near there?
Yeah. Wine country, New York wine country.
Oh, yeah.
I invite
So we're in
Demetria
the Finger
too,
Lakes.
because she's used to Napa Valley, but she could try the Finger Lakes.
She can
That's
come
awesome.
over here. You guys can stay here with me if you don't mind any turkeys and chickens around the house.
Oh, fun.
And some donkeys.
Well,
Have
here's a question for you that might break some rules. So when I spray the vineyard, I have to really PPE and everything else, even though the chemicals could be organic. And the choices are I could smell my own breath for 4 or 5 hours, but maybe there would be some scents that I might put in my mask that is to help me get through this task, an all-day task. And likewise, Maria works in a hospital, and so she has to mask up very often.
10 hours a day.
Yeah. What do you think, Maria, in your case, do you ever put some scents in the mask at all?
No, because when we first did this, we were so short of masks that we literally we weren't even wearing any moisturizer because we didn't want to ruin our N95. So at that point, we were literally just trying to save our N95 and not do any chemicals to it. So it kind of protects us a little bit more. Yeah. Now we try to do a little bit of the lavender, to do big, don't want to call it nasty, but bowel cases, any cancer cases and stuff like that, because you can still smell it through our mask. But if she has something that works better than lavender, I am all for it.
I would try a little bit of grapefruit essential oil or anything citrusy. So there's a couple hurdles to get past. Is when you're smelling something for that length of time, your nose is going to become kind of immune to it, and you're going to stop smelling.
Oh no!
So you want to repress it. I would not don't put my perfumes on the mask. You want to use something really essential oil or something very singular note, so that it's very simple for you. During the Black Plague, this is where aromatherapy kind of got its start, because during the Black Plague, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the masks where they look like a crow, like a bird's beak.
Yes.
And those birds' beaks were made because they filled them up with different herbs and oils and smelly things, because they believed that all of those ingredients in the beak would be a filter for the virus.
Oh, wow. That's nice to learn.
Yeah, and that's where masks originated from.
Kelly, wasn't there a group of thieves, grave robbers that actually put together some herbs that they felt like they really worked in keeping them from getting the Black Death. Oh, and this is cocoa.
Oh,
Hi,
Coco,
Coco.
you're so good. Got Lulu settled down a little bit. Coco.
Well, how you talked about citrus, maybe, when toiling. What if I took the peel of an orange and kind of the peel, and squeeze that? Would that have a similar effect as an essential oil?
Definitely, the skin of a citrus fruit has so much fragrance on it. It's so now, but you can't do it technically because it's not regulatory. It's not approved to put that straight on your skin. So you didn't hear it from me.
When
Oh,
did
and
the
it's also
bootlegger
not-
ever care
And,
about
yeah, and even
rules and
your fresh
regulations?
lavender, I would, yeah, you can rub
Or-
something natural
Or
on there.
put lavender in the mask then and mask up and go with my backpack.
Yeah.
The only thing I feel like with lavender is, well, it could help in a very stressful situation, but it's so calming and sleepy time. And if you're having to stay alert and
Mhm.
really on the ball, that's why I would suggest more of a citrusy aroma instead of
Yeah. I think that's what we had at the hospital at that point. I don't know why we had it. I think we do have some terminal ill patients that we do like aromatherapy on, just to help them ease their pain and stuff. I think that's why we had that, and we couldn't leave the hospital at that point, so we end up using it ourselves. So, but I'm glad that I know now. I will buy a little bottle and keep it in my locker just in case I end up staying in the hospital for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And it will just kind of keep you uplifted and energized too, because different essential oils have different properties for how they make you feel or how they make you react. And that's why they do work so well.
If you have a list on something like that, like if you have anything, like I would love to have it and kind of like share with my coworkers, because like I said, we were just trying to figure something out to help us get through it.
Send me an email. My email, and any of you, if you have questions or requests, or if you want to try anything else from my collection, it's info@kellyandjones.com. It should be on the back of your postcards. But yeah, just send me an email and we'll connect, and we can get you a list for your group to make your day a little more bright. Yeah, thank you for what you're doing.
I have a little tangential stories. I was doing an online jazz class last night, and the central tune that we were working on was a very famous jazz song called Maiden Voyage that some of you might know. It's by Herbie Hancock, very super famous jazz tune from the 60s. And so I was researching it, and it was kind of a different, like a tune that changed his style. And so I was researching it. It turned out that he wrote it for a perfume ad, a TV ad. And it really, when you listen to it from that perspective, it's like, oh, this sounds like perfume. And I always wondered where that song came from, because it was a kind of a change in direction for him. So there's a little perfume influence on the history of jazz.
That's so cool. I love that story. I know when I lived in New York City, there was a group that I got together with a few times, and they were all playing different instruments, and we would have each instrument section be a different aroma. And we actually created a few fragrances from the music. So we would, they would play their accords, and I'm sorry, my musical terms are probably not right at all, but they would play their piece, and then we would pick a fragrance that went with that piece. And then we'd play another piece of their work, and then we go, okay, that's jasmine, that's lavender, that's sandalwood. And in the end, we composed a song alongside a fragrance.
That's great. What a concept.
Russ, you've got to do that. You've got to do that. Both of you together.
All right, Russ,
do it.
Russ, what was your favorite one of the three samples we got?
I liked them all. I didn't, maybe.
That's what I said.
I think maybe bouquet.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
just as a smell, I'm not as something that I would wear necessarily, but I like them all. I thought they were all subtle and, you know, really interesting.
Well, what's interesting to me is I can still smell all three of them, even though I sprayed my old perfume on my sleeve.
To blanket out. Yeah, it is hard to, you know, it is hard to remove it once you got a little bit on you.
Yeah, that's why I gave everybody the paper strips, just in case you didn't want to put any on your skin yet. Hopefully
Right.
I'll wear some a little later, but if not, just
Yeah.
use the paper strips.
I mean, I don't mind. You know, this is the best I've smelled in a year.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna have my husband smell and see which one he likes.
there you go.
What smells, you know, to him.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great idea to do. And for the men, I have my mezcal collection. So I love mezcal because to me it has terroir, it has the same sort of personality of wine, where it's of the different regions of that part of Mexico, and it has so many different layers. And so my mezcal collection is a little more masculine, but there's just so many layers and complexity to it. But yes, so I was saying, Russ, everyone just go home and you can't even smell the shower gel that you have when you're taking a shower in the morning.
Yeah.
Every other day now, but
Yeah.
and you can kind of go, just train your nose after this,
Right.
after today, just start smelling everything around you. Just take your, where's my book? Yeah, you can just say, what's that paper smell like?
Yeah. I'm used to sticking my saxophone in my mouth, and I've noticed that there's some interesting aromas that, you know, that sort of accumulate around a wind instrument, you know, especially, you know.
Depending on what you drank the night before.
Well, absolutely. There is, yes, and of course, how often you clean it and so on. But there's other smells that are on there because you use cork grease to slip the mouthpiece on the neck, and then there's a little bit of machine oil that it's only put on every 5 years, so not very much. And then the smell of whatever you were drinking the night before, and the smell of the metal. It's a very smelly experience.
That sounds like an interesting perfume.
Right. Right. Ode to saxophone. Ode to funk.
$200 a bottle.
Yeah, that's right.
Trying to buy Russ.
Right. If you got there could be different brands of saxophones for the real gearheads, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be cool, because they probably just, again, like we captured that composition.
Right. Drums, they used to use more organic materials in instruments, so it's almost all synthetics now. You know, I mean, drums used to use calf skin heads, and I don't know, they probably had a different smell. Now it's plastic, or it's like synthetic materials. And basses used to use gut strings, which were like some kind of animal intestines. Of course, basses and violins are made out of wood, which has a smell, and there's a lot of smelly stuff in music.
It's crazy, because we were saying earlier how in perfumery the ingredient structures have changed, because they have regulated now that you can't use a lot of those materials. So
Natural material, yeah.
Musk, you aren't allowed to go out and get the gland of the deer to put that into your perfume. Hopefully you don't do that.
I think Maria would do that. She's a pretty good hunter.
Nice.
Do they still
get the gland from the coyote? You know, that would yeah.
That's a negotiation.
That's for the mezcal perfumes.
Do they still use ambergris in perfumes?
Yeah, there's a synthetic. Yeah, yeah.
It's not from real sperm whales anymore.
You're not allowed to use that, because it's so rare, and they don't want people hurting the whales to go find it.
Of course, yeah.
So they don't use it. It's, to me, it's, oh my God, the smell of it is so unreal. It's like you've taken a dive into the depths of the ocean, and you're smelling this world that,
yeah,
it's so unbelievable.
Yeah. People still have like a stash of it, and you can once in a while get to smell the real thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By any chance, do they have that in Japan, where whaling went on for a while?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that it's come from that region as well.
But I have a question. Would it be legal for me to give you the glands after I go hunting? It is legal for me to hunt, my dear. I do get tags. I have my hunting license. I mean, everything about it is legal. I don't know if it's legal for me to harvest the gland.
I mean, technically, you would not be able to sell it, so you could.
Well, I can give it as a gift. I give a lot of my meat as gift. To the elders around my area, so you can become old in 2 minutes. And
that's a really interesting question.
So when you meet up for this Finger Lakes wine tasting, maybe you can turn this into a real perfume. See, the more collaboration there. Just don't sell it.
I was just thinking how funny. You guys all know that Texas, this time of the year, we start having bluebonnets, right?
Right.
And do you know that they have a smell that's just fabulous? It's a really, it just, it almost smells like the bouquet. But it is fabulous. And man, we have some really great wildflowers. Come on over to Texas right now.
It's a deal. I'll take you up on that as soon as I can travel out of New York. I will
Yeah.
take you up on that. I know what you mean, because I used to live out in the desert Southwest, and the wildflower blooms are indescribable.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
Well, you never really think of grapevines, as a flower, but the grape bud does flower, and it puts out a scent. And I'd have to say that after meeting Ms. Jones, in the springtime when the grape buds are flowering, the whole vineyard becomes a perfumery. It's quite extraordinary.
Wow.
And I think, like she said, just in everyday life, just things that you smell, if you begin to think about it consciously, it can really expand your mind.
How does the smell of the grape blossoms or the grapevines relate to the smell of wine, and then the smell of grappa? Like, do you feel a line between all of those?
I haven't been able to draw the connection. So, for example, if you had limoncello with lemons, there you can draw the straight connection from the lemon to
it
the.
It smells like lemons, yeah.
I'd have to think a little bit harder about that. What I can do though is there's another process we have where we press the wine. So pressing the wine is fermented. Let's say it's fermented at about a week. 1 week in time, and you're basically separating all the skins. So you press the skins and you end up with this cake. It's literally a cake. So you've had a ton of grapes and now it's all compressed to one basket. And I pick that up with my hands and I break it open and I put my nose in there. And there's a direct connection from that. They call it pumice. So from that pumice to the wine, but that's where I tell you, I really have experienced this smell from time to time of chocolate. It's crazy. But Russ, the next time spring is coming,
okay.
Their little shoots now are coming out. I'm beginning to see the first little buds of grapes, and as they flower, I'll try to think about what that connection is.
Because grappa has such a perfumey smell of its own. So grappa is almost like perfume.
It does.
You can almost use it as perfume.
Yeah, but I can take the grappa smell and tie that back to wine, because the wine has a perfume, the wine has an aroma, and some of that aroma through the distillation process makes it way to the distillate.
Yeah.
And that's very, very true. And I think that's why I'm fascinated by grape distillate. It is so enjoyable. And even, the same day after it's distilled, it's wonderful. Any other questions for Kelly? It's now past 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and I'm afraid Lulu may need her din-din.
Greg, there's only 5 of us left. And I know Kelly and I know Russ. I think I know you. And then, but there's iPhone 2 that's been talking and she seems so interesting. Can she introduce herself?
Me, Maria.
Yes, Maria.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Maria Moreno. I met Greg on an airplane, actually. We were both flying to Newark. Remember that day?
How could I ever forget? It almost changed my life forever. It's too bad. It's too bad my book was mostly written by then, or it might have changed.
Yeah.
Where are you? Where are you, Maria?
I'm up New York State, by the
Oh,
Finger
right,
Lakes.
of course. Sure.
Yes, I'm a surgical technician. Was born in Mexico. I call it a farm. It's not technically a farm. We have a couple chickens, we live out of the land as much as we can. We hunt our own meat. We grow our own food.
Wow.
We're trying to be self-sufficient, but I do work at a hospital. So all these COVID things kind of hit me a little bit hard because I had to stay at the hospital a lot of the days.
Yeah.
I mean, Craig wants to share some of the pictures that I sent him with my face all messed up and everything that I shared with him. He was my outlet. Some of the days I was a little bit depressed. So we kind of got close just because of that. Because I couldn't tell my family. I couldn't, I didn't want them to be worried about me and stuff like that. So I guess I made him worry about me since he wasn't really family, just a friend. So
Yeah.
but that's me.
And your
I've been cooking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, your face was messed up because you were wearing masks and PPE
Yeah, I was
all
wearing
day.
for
Yeah.
N95 for the first time. So,
Yeah.
but we're all good now. So that's perfect.
Well, I'd like to share one short story about that. Is about a year ago at this time. Basically, I didn't have a job. My lines of credit were used up, which means I was in debt. And I figured in 3 more weeks, I was running out of money. And so instead of sitting around the house and doing nothing, I had a garage, which has the audacity to call itself a winery. And I said, well, I'm going to deliver wine to nurses and go to hospitals. So I started visiting any hospital that I could drive to in San Diego County. And I think I posted it, wine for nurses. And then in one of these Twitter feeds, Maria pops up and she says, what about me? And it's like, I hadn't heard from her since almost we had met. I said, yes. So immediately, sent a case of wine, out to her hospital. I don't know how much of it actually made it to the other hospital staff. Marie, you do not have to answer that question.
I did. We actually, I don't know if I told you, we had a party signed up for wine tasting because we get together 3 or 4 times a year to do wine tasting. So I brought in 3 of the 4 bottles that you sent me, and I brought them in, and because we were having the party and everything started going crazy. And she said, well, we're going to save them until everything comes down and we're going to taste it. So a couple of those bottles we have not opened.
Oh.
I had 2 of them. Then 4th of July came over, and I don't know, I think I sent you the picture. 4th of July came over and they came to my house and we had all together, we kind of have one of them. So yeah, I've been sharing it. I have not been opening them by myself. So I've been sharing everything with everybody. So
that's wonderful.
I may not have given a whole one to somebody, but I have shared a whole with somebody.
Well, it's very deserving.
Oh, neat. I'm so glad to meet you, Maria.
Oh, thank you. Same here.
Yeah,
so this
me
is
too.
your house anytime.
We have to get together. We're close. Let's try to meet up. I would love.
Oh, I would love to meet you.
I lived in Mexico City for a while too.
So maybe what you could do is seriously organize a wine tasting tour in Finger Lakes, and my sister would go. Maria's close by. Maybe Russ could scoot over from Massachusetts, and publicize it to all your fans and everything.
You guys,
which lake are you closest to?
I'm actually the closest one is one of my close friends works is at Three Brothers, which is like right here in Geneva.
I mean, which knife?
Cayuca. I can't say it properly.
Cuca?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
something like that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I bet you don't know this, but the seaplane was invented on that lake.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's nice information.
Kelly,
I'm
oh, sorry.
no,
Go
you're
ahead,
okay.
Maria. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I said thank you.
Kelly, I've learned a lot, and it's really exciting to meet you. Thanks so much for going with Craig's good ideas.
Oh no, it's
Thank
me
you.
who went with her ideas. She used my idea.
I mean, Craig, thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. I couldn't wait to connect with you all because I hear stories of you from Craig. I know we all get to cross paths, and Craig and I met on Twitter 13 or 15 years ago, and I'm so grateful for that faded, because I think you were also saying, who is this girl wearing perfume in the tasting room? I think maybe were you yelling at me? But I'm so grateful, and you've given me so much inspiration and laughter and things to taste. And so I hope that someday we can all have a fun gathering together. I think it would be quite amazing.
Definitely.
Kelly,
Yeah.
do you have a website?
I do. It's on the back of the postcards. It's Kelly and Jones.
Ah,
And if you see anything else on the website that you want to try, just shoot me a note and I'll send them your way.
Yeah, it was great. I got the box the other day and I was like, what's this box? I was like, I know I order a lot of stuff, mail order now, but I was like, I don't remember anything. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. So thank you for the nice surprise.
Thank you for Craig.
Craig, it seems like Kelly and Maria and Russ can get together, but man, we're out in the boonies.
We're gonna meet in Texas, and we're gonna go to the hill country, and we're gonna visit the wineries, and you're gonna join us. And
all right.
Connie as well.
Connie,
and
too.
it's gonna be a good time.
Remember, we have a little guest house. It's not fancy, but you're welcome there anytime.
Let's definitely connect. Yeah, shoot me an email. Let me know all your contact information so we can all keep in touch. That would be great.
And Craig, what's the next book event?
I was going to ask all of you that. I have one idea is tattoos. I have tattoos on my mind. That's a good topic.
But do
you have any on your body?
Craig, I can't let my grandson, 15 years old, hear that.
Right, well,
yes, ma'am.
I've got one more story to tell you about tattoos. My son, who's 43 now, he came home from UT Austin and said, "Dad, I want a tattoo." And Jesse's an artist, and he said, "Well, son, you can't just get any tattoo. You've got to get one original to our family. You really got to get one that's completely different from everybody else." And so they started drawing, and Jesse drew one, and he drew one, and they drew one. And finally they found one that they liked, but he lost interest by that time.
I'm scared.
Yeah, unlike my son.
All right, guys, I'm gonna have to let you go.
All right.
Okay, bye, Marian. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Happy spring.
Take care.
Bye.